Week 15, and the NFL is getting ready with some fun playoff scenarios. My name is Amir from the PW Podcast. With me, as always, is Tassi, the football Greek.
What's up?
And we are starting our coverage of Week 15 by talking about what happened on Thursday night. Amazon has been busting out these Thursday night games, division game one after another, after another, after another, after another. And Foxy, I feel like it's Groundhog's Day over and over
Yep.
again for the 49ers. You being a 49er fan, I think you can attest to this because another division game at home
Yep.
and another loss in 2024.
Yep.
I don't think anyone had this on their bingo card when they started
Nope.
the season.
Not at all.
But here we are, man. 0-3
Yeah.
versus the division at home. What is
Yeah.
happening? What were your thoughts on that Thursday game? No touchdowns, by the way. A very defensive game. Just straight
Yes.
field goals. What's going on, man?
Well, it was, first of all, Thursday Night Football, again, division game. Again, sorry game to watch. I was at the game and I wasn't watching. It was so boring. It was so annoying. It was like literally, no touchdowns were scored. Like a lot of people are in their fantasy playoffs, like starting, and they had like a lot of players from that game, and only like Puka Nakua basically because he had like some yardage and some catches, and he had that deep ball. Really, that was like really the highlight of the play, and then also that kind of the helmet catch he had, which is like kind of like the David Tyree type of catch around Travarius Ford, which was a cool catch. I'll give him that. And then Kyren Williams had a good game. He's like kind of got the Niners number. He's like had big games against them pretty much every time they faced him. So Kyren Williams with a decent fantasy game had over 100 yards rushing. So other than that, everybody else kind of stunk. But going to the Niners and what they did, they pretty much ended their season on Thursday night because they didn't show up. The crowd didn't show up. It was raining, yeah. The Devo was dropping passes, touchdown passes. Purdy was throwing interceptions when they could tie the game with a field goal. They were dropping interceptions left and right. Demo had an interception on like the first possession. Would have put him in field goal range already. With the interception. Then Huff comes back. He had basically Stafford throws him the ball, no interception. But, honestly, like looking at their defense with Greenlaw back, Greenlaw came back and he was a beast. He had like 8 or 9 tackles in the first half. He was all over the field. He looked amazing. So glad to have that guy back. I know that he had to leave the game because he was starting to get a little fatigue and, he's kind of going all out. And like, obviously he's coming off a torn Achilles. So they didn't want to take any chances with him, but he looked amazing. Their defense was like full strength for that first half. And you could see like the Rams could do nothing. But unfortunately, their offense couldn't do anything. So they weren't able to score any touchdowns. They weren't supposed to. Otherwise, if their offense did anything, they'd be out to, a big lead, and they would have won that game, easy. But really, I'm not blaming the defense at all. They could have made some more splash plays because they had opportunities to have a couple more of interceptions that would have been easier for the offense to actually put up points. But really, this was on the offense and how they played, which was terrible. Yep. And, Brock Purdy didn't have his best game. He was jumping around in the pocket. It was kind of awkward. He was missing throws. He was overthrowing people, made some bad decisions. Guys dropping passes like Debo, who had basically was going to walk in for a touchdown if he catches it. There was nobody behind them. So, it was just a bummer game. And then on top of it, Greenlaw goes out, and then they have Devondre Campbell decide he's just not going to play anymore. He's just going to walk off the field. Yeah. And quit on the team. And, that really kind of is just the culmination of the season, essentially. Like, you just the season from hell, as most of us are calling it here in the Bay Area. But basically, you had all the off-field stuff. You had the on-field stuff. You had tragedy for some of the players. Just a lot of crap going on. This year just was a terrible year. And I'm kind of like waiting for it to end because I'm ready. At this point, there's no chance that they're going to make the playoffs. They would need, I think, like the scenarios, I think they have like 1% chance, and like the scenarios they need are like impossible because the Rams and Seattle basically have to lose out, and because they're 3 games behind both of them, because Rams have a tiebreaker, Seattle has a tiebreaker. So that's not going to happen because they're going to play. So they still have to play, and someone's probably going to win that game unless they tie. But it's like they got to hope
Do,
that
do,
Arizona doesn't win, right? So
do you
just
think?
there's no chance.
I mean, with the offensive production, or should we say the lack of offensive production
Yeah,
in the game, and really, granted, they had a nice offensive game against the Bears, but it's the
they
Bears.
did.
But the rest of the season has been, I don't know,
Lacking. It has.
lacking
Yeah,
subpar, offensively,
especially compared to
and
last year.
with the player walking out and all that kind of stuff. Do you think that Kyle Shanahan's message is falling on deaf ears in that locker room?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's Shanahan. I mean, I feel like that locker room is full of vets. You know what I mean? They've been in the Super Bowl. They've been to multiple championship
Oh
games.
yeah,
Like they should have the leadership in the locker room to like take care of themselves. I don't think they need the coach at this point to rah them into wanting to go far and make it to the Super Bowl again and win. Like I think that's on them. And like granted, Devondre Campbell's a new player to their so their locker room. Like I don't know what the relationships are like with him or whatever, but clearly the guy like he wasn't that good this year. He was getting cooked constantly. He was like the weak spot on our defense the whole year. We get Dre Greenlaw back, who's a Pro Bowl linebacker. Dude, you're gonna ride the pine, bro. Just chill out. If he needs to come in when you're supposed to, but like you basically failed the team and you gave up on the team. And that was just the most messed up part because Greenlaw came out on coming off a torn Achilles, gave his all, and he's better than you, and he deserved to play better than you and more than you, and so like you should take that target. You should be like, I'm going to go on there, I'm going to play better because this guy, look what he's doing, but and
yeah.
prove it to everybody. But instead, you bitch out and you walk up the field, and that's all she wrote for him. Like he's done. He's probably not getting a job in the NFL
I'm
after that.
shocked that they haven't dropped him already.
They will. They're trying to decide if they're gonna cut him or they're gonna suspend him. And I think they want to suspend him because then he won't get paid because he doesn't deserve it after what he did. Because he basically like cost them their chance at a playoff because they needed a linebacker to come in and step up in the second half when Greenlaw went out to help them stop the Rams because they had plenty of opportunities to still win that game. They were still in it the whole game. They're actually leading for most of the game. Essentially, it was kind of obviously it was like 6 points, right? It wasn't much. They ended up losing by. So at any point they still could have won the game. And this guy doesn't show up, doesn't help the defense get off the field, help them get the ball back. They could have stopped them on fourth down, right? And then they could have got the ball back and only been down 3 and had over a minute to play and essentially go down and win the game or tie the game. Even with the kickoff return, like they even had a chance, like, right. They even with 10 seconds left, they could have gotten to field goal range if they would have stopped him. Right. So, essentially, he failed the team, he punked out and walked off. And as an Irish fan, it's really disappointing that we actually have guys in the locker room that, like we're paying to see. Like I'm a season ticket holder. I'm paying to see these guys. Like I'm spending my money to go to the game, and I expect that they're gonna reciprocate. Right? This is their job to play football. They're getting paid to do it, and it was his turn. He's next man up. Get in there and play. Like don't walk off the field because your feelings are hurt. So I mean that's my take on it.
Yeah, it's a weird situation, and I didn't really mean just him. I mean like the team in general. Like you could just kind of sense that, like, even from the very beginning of the season, and we'll move on from the Niners in a second, but like you could feel like from the very beginning of the season with CMC, like an unexpected injury. I mean, remember, like no one thought CMC was out until 90 minutes before the first game.
Yep.
This wasn't like a pre-existing. This wasn't a thing that people had expected in the preseason or anything like that. And that was the first domino in a long line of dominoes that have just like plagued the team throughout the year.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I kind of disagree with you when you say like I don't need Kyle Shanahan doesn't need to rah his team, because I can point to Dan Campbell and Mike Tomlin and the coaches that are killing it this year who absolutely rah their teams, and they have veterans on their team, and they have all that kind of stuff. And these are dudes, maybe not Dan Campbell, but Mike Tomlin for damn sure has been doing this a hell of a lot longer than Kyle Shanahan's been doing it. And like, you just watch like a two-minute clip of Hard Knocks on like, you know, an Instagram reel, and like, you want to run through a wall for this guy. Imagine him being your coach 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So there is a part of me that thinks, and we talked about this in a previous episode, that like that Gary Kubiak tree, that whatever tree that is, right?
The Mike Shanahan, Gary Kubiak
tree Shanahan. Is a little overrated. And you know, I'm not convinced that they hold all the answers to what needs to be done as far as running a team, right?
Yeah.
But like, again, Kyle Shanahan had a very good years, took the Niners to NFC Championships games, Super Bowl games, et cetera, et cetera. He had success for sure, but hasn't been able to close. I thought that this year would be that year.
Yeah.
And it's not coming to fruition.
Not gonna happen.
Really.
Yeah.
But it is honestly. Yeah. Go ahead.
For me, like I see what you're talking about. I get that these guys, you know, sometimes need a little bit more fire. And unfortunately, the Niners this year, it's kind of been the disease of me, you know, with the way that starting with Ayuk, the holdout, you know, Trent with the holdout, you know, Debo with just everything that's kind of gone on this season with him. You know, he was like complained this week about getting the ball, and they tried to really make an effort to get on the ball. And then when Purdy hits him with a perfect pass in stride, he's going to score a touchdown, he drops it. So it's just like, there it is, right? That's like, that's it in a nutshell. But, you know, like that's more, I feel like that's more on the players. Like our players, they haven't won the big game. They haven't won it all, but yet they act like they've won it all. And like that is an issue. And I think this is good, a lesson for them, a humbling lesson for them. Hopefully they'll take it and they'll learn from it. And then next year they'll come back stronger. But, you know, honestly, with the way that Shanahan coaches, like it's just not his style, right? He's kind of like a laid back, you know, kind of like he's kind of quirky kind of guy. But I think he definitely rides guys like they get in his doghouse. Like Ayuk a couple years got in the doghouse, and then like look what happened. He like came out a couple years later and he was like Pro Bowl receiver, you know, like he worked hard and he like, you know, got paid. But, you know, unfortunately it didn't last, right? So I think from a front office perspective, they have to change how they deal with these guys in the offseason. I think they need to get them to the negotiating table early, get this stuff done, get it cranked out. Do not sit here and play hardball and like, you know, do all this stuff where they're kind of like wasting the entire training camp with these guys, because every year they've seemed to have a holdout. They've got the biggest extensions here with Brock Purdy. They've got, you know, Mooney Ward, who might, you know, they may need to re-sign. They've got Hufanga, who needs to be re-signed. They've got some other guys that need to be re-signed. Yeah. It's like they need to get these guys in and get them into camp, get them signed if they want to keep them. If they're not, get another free agent in there and, you know, like make sure that they get these guys in early. So we're not dealing with this crap anymore, because this was should be a lesson.
I will say, I'm not paying Brock Purdy $60 million a year.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to take $60 million a year. I think he's going to be around 35 to 40. I think that's my guess.
He's getting way more than that, dude.
No, he'll get about 40 million. That's my.
You know what his leverage is? Here's his leverage. Who else are you going to get?
Yeah,
that's his leverage. Who else are you going to
get? Kirk Cousins. The shell of Kirk Cousins.
Well, you know what's funny is earlier in the season that we did this, I said that. Yeah. I said that, you know, Kirk Cousins would last more than a year in Atlanta. I think that's going to come through.
I think for sure. He's going to get benched. Like we talked about in the beginning, like he should have been benched in the beginning. He had that, like, all of a sudden he just had this, like, spectacular run of, like, a couple of games, and then he went back to being the crap. You
know, it's going to be Michael Penix's team, and Kirk Cousins be one and done in Atlanta, and they're gonna find someone to take on that contract. It's not gonna be the Niners, though.
Yeah, the Niners don't want him.
I highly doubt
they're gonna sign Purdy. They'll figure it out. They'll figure out a number, but he's not gonna get 60. I don't think he's even gonna get 50. I think he's gonna get somewhere in the 40s. I'm gonna say, like I said, 40 million, but maybe it's 45-ish, 48, maybe closer to 50. but he's not going to get
Big difference.
60.
You said 35 to 40 first, and
That's what I think. That's what
now
I
you're
think.
saying 48 to 50. That's a
Yeah,
big
that's a
difference.
big difference. It is. It is.
Different.
But in my mind, like 42 is the number that sounds right. 42.
Listen,
we'll see what comes. We'll see if it
the
comes.
benefit of the
comes to
team,
pass.
I hope for him, I hope it's like a 35, 40 number, because
Yeah.
he's this season, it's unfortunate for him. This was the season to ball out, and he has not.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to talk about the rest of the NFL. It is week 15, and that means that there are playoff implications on the line with these games. And so we have 4 teams that have officially clinched. They are in the playoffs no matter what. Right now, for the battle of the 1 seed in the AFC, the Chiefs are 12-1. The Bills, with their loss,
the Rams,
the Rams are 10-3. So basically, with 4 games left,
they own the tiebreaker, so they got to get they got to make up 2 games.
Yes, they got to get 2 games. Chiefs got to lose something here or there,
or at least 4 of the or 2 of the games, at least 2 of the games. It's a good.
Yeah, we'll see if that happens for the Bills to get the 1 seed, because if the Bills truly want a shot in the Super Bowl, I think it needs to go through Buffalo. I think if we're going to Arrowhead, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
We are in trouble.
That could be trouble. I don't know. I just don't think the Chiefs are that
I
good
agree.
this year.
I agree.
And I think they can be beat in our Arrowhead or wherever. I think Buffalo's a better team.
They are.
And they should be able to beat them wherever they play. If they get a fair game.
If it's Arrowhead
by the referees
in the playoffs, in the cold, I don't know. I don't know. As far as the NFC is concerned, you've got the Lions and the Eagles vying for that 1 seed. Eagles are just 1 game back right now.
And the Vikings too.
Yeah, the Vikings
are 1 game back of
they're 1 game,
as well.
They're 1 game back as well right now. Yeah, what's interesting is because of the way that the NFL structures these playoff brackets, because they give 1, 2, 3, and 4 to the division winners.
Yeah.
Vikings, instead of being the 3rd seed, are currently the 5th.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. That's fine. That actually makes their schedule a little bit easier, because as the 5th seed, they would play the 4th seed in the Buccaneers.
Yeah.
And so
the easiest matchup.
That's probably an easy matchup for them. They'll go to Tampa Bay, nice weather, and beat up on the Buccaneers, call it a day, and back home. Now,
Buccaneers are scrappy, man. Baker's scrappy.
No, I agree, and I'm just that's hypothetical, right? Like, Baker absolutely is scrappy. All right, let's talk about the teams that are in the hunt. So Steelers right now, man, what a season, right? Like Russell Wilson, that change to Russell Wilson from Justin Fields is paying dividends, I should say. Right now, the Steelers have a 99% chance of getting into the playoffs with a 10-3 record. They are the current best team in the NFC North, holding a 2-game lead over the Baltimore Ravens, right?
Yeah.
So the Steelers play the Eagles this week in a very interesting matchup.
Very interesting.
The Battle of Pennsylvania, if we'll call it. So this is huge, right? They're both teams, a huge game for both teams, right? Eagles need to keep winning to stay neck and neck with the Lions. Lions got the Bills this week. Both of those teams need to win to stay for the Bills to stay neck and neck with the Chiefs, and for the Lions to maintain their dominance. What a week, man. I mean, you talk about 2 games that have huge playoff implications. Eagles, Steelers, we'll start with them first. Yeah. Who do you think has the most momentum going into this game right now?
I think the Steelers do, honestly, because the Steelers have a better locker room at this point. I think there's Eagles.
They're not arguing with each other, you mean?
There's a little bit of some friction going on between Jalen Hurts and his quarterback, and then some linebackers that are kind of calling them out. And
a little friction to hurt anyone.
Yeah, so there's a little turmoil. Like, this kind of reared its head last year when they kind of went on their slide and kind of same time, right? Like they were what 10-1 at the time or something like that, or
Yep.
like when they played the
They were
Niners,
like, yeah, they were like
and
9.
and
Yeah,
then they
yeah,
got crushed, and
yeah.
then they slid and lost in the first round. So like let's see if this is smoke or fire kind of thing, or as they say, where there is smoke, there is fire. So potentially there already is a little fire brewing in Philadelphia with the Eagles. So I think that Pittsburgh, because of their defense, because they're just more, kind of more put together, they got a better head coach. I do think they're going to win this game, and then that's going to be tough for the Eagles then to catch Detroit, because I do think that, you know what? Honestly, if we'll talk about the Detroit and the Bills here, but in a minute. But I think as far as the Eagles go, I do think the Eagles are going to drop this one. I think Pittsburgh will take it. I mean, Pittsburgh defense is just so good. I can't see them not being able to contain Jalen Hurts and them guys. I mean, they're going to have to deal with Saquon, who's a beast, who's having MVP type season. But
Absolutely.
I think they can handle it. I mean, they're probably the best defense in the NFL right now. So I think that they'll be able to take care of business and hand Philly their third loss here.
I already know what you're going to say for the next one. You're going to say Buffalo is going to beat up on the Detroit Lions. I know that. That is bias, by the way. That's bias speaking.
What? I'm not like honorary Bills Mafia here. What?
that is bias speaking.
I got my pickup truck. I'm jumping off it this weekend.
It is in Detroit, man, and so that is, I mean, look, the Bills are stinging off that loss to the Rams. Okay.
Yeah.
And I guess the question for me in this game, right? Because the Detroit's defense, to me, it's better offense. It's who's the better defense.
Yeah.
And when you're the Buffalo Bills defense and you're giving up 44 points to the LA Rams.
Yeah.
Friendly reminder that they gave up almost 30 points to the Miami Dolphins, right? So they're not a great defense. It is Josh Allen and Josh Allen, other pieces, but Josh Allen that is really
catapulting. Yeah, he's the front runner for the MVP.
The Buffalo Bills this year. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, this game comes down to who plays better defense.
Yeah, I could see that, but I think it's going to come down to Josh Allen versus Jared Goff. And there's a reason why Matthew Stafford was traded to the Rams and they sent Jared Goff back into the Lions, because Matthew Stafford's a better quarterback. And that's why they were able to put up all those points against the Bills defense, because they got Puka Nacua, who nobody has a Puka Nacua. I know Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's good, but he's not Puka Nacua. That dude's special. And, I know the running games are comparable. Kyren Williams he's a really good running back. They got Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs in Detroit. So, when you're comparing, hey, offensively, like how are they going to put up points type of thing. So I do think Detroit will put up points. I just think that Jared Goff is not that good compared to these guys. To Stafford especially, to Josh Allen even more so. So I don't think that he's going to beat Josh Allen. I think Josh Allen is going to put his cape on again, and he's going to lead Buffalo to victory. It doesn't matter if, Detroit puts up 40 again, because like the Rams did essentially, because Buffalo will be able to match that, especially against Detroit's defense. It's a sieve now. They don't have any defensive players left. Like all these guys they just cannot play defense anymore. So I think Buffalo is going to end Detroit their second loss. And, it's going to be okay for Philly to lose. But then the Vikings are going to win this week. And I think them and Detroit are going to be tied for the number 1 seed here, going into a matchup that I think they're going to play against each other here at the end of the season. So if you correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
the Vikings play.
Let's go through here, right? So the Vikings are playing the Bears this week.
Yep. And they're going to destroy the Bears.
That's
the Bears are a mess. They
great.
fired Matt Eberflus, who was their defensive signal caller and the defensive guy. Mm-hmm. And you could tell against the Niners because they just got smashed. Their defense stunk. They tried to change their defense after he was let go, like mid, on a whim in the next week. So I don't know if it's going to be enough time to install this new defense, whatever they want to run in Chicagoland. but honestly, like they're gonna get stomped by Minnesota. So Minnesota's gonna win that game, and then they're gonna be tied with Detroit for the 1 seed. But who does Minnesota play the following week after they play the Bears?
I'll have to look that up. But
is it right there on the? Oh no, it's not there.
No, it only has the current game up right
percentages.
Now. They play the Seahawks at Seattle.
So they play the Seahawks at Seattle. That's an interesting game. I still think Minnesota will win that game. And then who do they play?
Packers at home, and then at the Lions.
Mm-hmm. So they're gonna get that. The number 1 seed in the NFC is gonna come down to that last week, because I think Minnesota is going to keep winning.
I think they'll win
and I think they can win out, and it's going to come down to that game against Detroit. Well, not going to win out essentially, but they have to play Detroit last week. Probably going to be tied, for the number 1 seed there. Green Bay, Philly is going to stick around. So
Green Bay is a sneaky team, dude. Green Bay has a sneaky team this year, and Green Bay plays Seattle this week.
They do,
right? So Seattle's back-to-back NFC North opponents here.
They are, and that's why everybody was thinking, okay, well the Niners, if they win this week against the Rams, then potentially could catch Seattle, because they're going to have 2 tough games in a row with potentially a loss to the Packers, a loss to the Vikings, even though they got them both at home. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think Seattle is that good of a team. They're good at beating like the mediocre teams, and apparently, like the Cardinals. They destroyed the Cardinals both times they played them. Yep. And, they can't beat the Rams, and the Rams get to play them too again. So that was the whole thing where, hey, like they're still in this, and then they come out and they, obviously throw up the stinker. They're done. And now it's like, okay, well, can Seattle make the playoffs? And I think the Rams are actually going to make the playoffs in the NFC West when it all comes said and done.
Because I think the Rams are winning the division, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. They're gonna win the division, and because Seattle's gonna probably lose the next 2. Rams, get, I think, the Jets. They get the Cardinals and Seattle. I think they're gonna win out the rest of their games, and they're gonna take the division there.
It's interesting when you look at the NFC. When you look at this chart that I'm showing right now, like if you look at the AFC placement, if you will, for 3 through 7, that to me is pretty much a lock. Now, the really interesting part here is that the Broncos are playing Indianapolis this week.
Yeah,
Indianapolis is right behind them here at 8, at 6. If the Colts win, they automatically go to a 55% chance of making the playoffs. And if the Broncos lose, they'll go from 74% where they are right now to 46% of making the playoffs. This is a huge game, Broncos and Colts right here, which I think the Broncos are going to win. But nonetheless, this is a big game right here. And then down here at 9, the Dolphins are on tail, right?
They are.
This is a very interesting game because the Dolphins are playing the Texans this week.
Yes.
I would argue this is Miami's hardest game left.
It is.
So they have Houston at Houston. If Houston currently has a 96% probability of getting in because the AFC South is terrible. If they win, it goes to 99 because I think they'll clinch.
Yes.
And if they lose, actually no, they won't clinch, right? Hold on, let's see. No, they'll clinch. No, they won't clinch because the Colts are still kind of on there.
If the Colts lose and they win, then
the Colts lose and the Texans win, then they clinch. But controversial
Dolphins.
I think the Dolphins are winning. I don't have faith in the Texans. I know Nico Collins is killing it. But my opinion of that is if Miami Dolphins can stop Nico Collins, then they win the game. And if they can do that, the rest of their schedule to me, and I apologize to you as a Niner fan, is not scary to me at all. I think they can I think they can take on the Niners at home. I think they can take on the Browns in Cleveland, and I think they can finish the season in New York against the Jets. And so they can win 4 out of 4 if they take care of business against the Texans. If they lose this game, they're out. There's no probability of them. If they lose, they have a 5% probability of making the playoffs. So that it just goes away. If they win, however, they jump to 29%. and then if they continue to win, it just kind of goes up from there. But this
Yeah.
Broncos Colts game, on paper, might not seem like the sexiest matchup, but there's a lot of playoff implications in this game right here.
There
One of
is.
these teams have to lose. I mean, they could tie, but one of these teams, in theory, has to lose, is going to lose. And it's going to be a big difference because, look, if the Colts lose, they go to 7%. If they win, they go to 55%. If Denver loses, they go to 46%. And if they win, they jump all the way to 89%. So this is a huge game.
So in essence, like as a Dolphins fan, you're hoping that the Broncos actually lose this game.
I'm hoping the lose. Yeah.
Yeah. Because if they win, their probability is high. And what are they right now? They're 8-5.
8-5. So they'll go to 9-5. And if Miami wins, 7-7. So my hope would be that the Broncos lose, they go to 8-6. Colts go to 7-7, and we go to 7-7. Now the Colts beat us earlier in the season, so they'll still have the higher, probability.
Yeah. They'll the tiebreaker.
The downside, though, is I don't think any team in the NFL has an easier schedule the rest of the way than the Indianapolis Colts. Listen to the schedule. After the Broncos, the Indianapolis Colts play the Titans at home, Giants on the road, and the Jaguars at home.
Wow, that's 3 wins in a row right there.
Colts beat the Broncos, they can waltz into the playoffs. Because those 3 games are gimmies.
So the Colts at this point they almost have their own destiny in their hands, essentially.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. It's a huge game. If the Colts beat the Broncos, they have a very real shot of making the playoffs because the rest, the last 3 games are gimmies. So actually, I take that back. I don't want the Colts to win. I want the Colts to lose because if this is the only game that they could probably lose, which is against the Broncos.
You need them to lose at least one.
I need them to lose at least one, and the Dolphins to win out. That's what I. And then in essence, it's a little hairier, right? If the Ravens can lose a couple games, or the Chargers can lose a couple games, or the Broncos can lose a couple, then we're talking Miami finishes the season 10-7. Maybe the Chargers finish 9-8 or something like that. I mean, who knows, right? But yeah, huge playoff with that game.
A lot going on. So the Chargers aren't they also 8-5? The Chargers
are 8-5, and the last remaining games that they have a harder. No, they've got a kind of easy set too. So they've got the Buccaneers this week. They've got the Broncos next week. Okay, so that's a difficult game. Then they're at the Patriots, and they finish the season at the Raiders.
Yeah. So they could potentially win 3 of 4, essentially. The Broncos game is going to be the tough game for them. Tampa Bay is still a tough opponent as well.
Yep.
So I mean, they could potentially go 2-2. So that would put them at what? 10-7. 10-7. So the Dolphins could tie them, and I don't know. You got to look at okay, well, if they finish 10-7,
correct.
Broncos finish 10-7.
Yeah.
Indianapolis finishes 10-7, and then what I mean. Who's gonna have the tiebreaker in that scenario? So that's what you got to look at too, but there is 2 playoff spots that are available at that time. So 2 of those 4 teams would actually still make the playoffs.
Yes.
So very interesting stuff. It's always gonna get down to the nitty gritty, and as we watch these games go on, it's gonna obviously make it clearer to who potentially is gonna have the better path. So I mean, I think even you are torn on who do you want to see win this week.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I wish as a Dolphin fan, I wish that it was in their hands. It's not anymore.
It's not.
They win out. That's great, but they need help, right?
They do need help.
If they had beaten the Packers and they won out, and then destiny would have been in their hands. But losing Thanksgiving to the Packers pretty much eliminated that, right?
Yeah.
But as far as the NFC goes, the NFC to me is it's fluid because right now we're looking at the Seahawks being at 3, but we already talked about we're thinking the Rams, who are technically not even in the playoffs at the moment, going to be the ones that win that take the NFC West division title.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But
that would move them to 3. And then the question is, do the Seahawks make the playoffs? Will they
yeah,
have a better record than the Commanders? Because right now, them and the Commanders are tied.
yeah,
And the Commanders have an 8-5 record. They're playing the Saints.
yeah, they're gonna win that game. Derek
They're going to
Carr's
win.
out, so
The Saints have been playing better.
they've been playing better, but Derek Carr's out. They're not gonna win that game. Like,
Yeah.
they don't have a quarterback. I don't even know who their quarterback is. It's like something with an H. Heiner,
Yeah.
something. I don't even know the guy's name. I never even heard of him before.
Wow.
They're gonna win. They're
I
gonna
didn't
beat
realize
Jay Daniels and the Commanders. Come on, that's not gonna happen.
the Seahawks have won 4 in a row here after
They
the
have
bye.
after that Niners comeback when Geno Smith put the night on the Niners pretty much because he ended their season too in that game. Because they've lost every game since except for the Bears game obviously, but they lost 3 in a row and then then this game. So the Seahawks have gone a little run here, and I honestly don't think the Seahawks are that good, but what it is what it is, man. So they have a really good chance of actually still getting the wild card, because the Commanders could potentially lose these games, but I don't think they are. So I still think the Commanders are going to be in it. I don't know who do the Commanders play in the next games after they play the
4
Saints.
games that the Commanders have is Saints at the Saints this week.
Yeah.
Then home against the Eagles.
That's a tough one.
Home against the Falcons, and then they finish the season at the Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean Cowboys have been playing better. Cowboys could be playing spoiler, so you could say that the Commanders might only win one of those remaining games, right? Like they potentially
have a very realistic possibility of 2 NFC West teams making it.
Yeah.
Or 1 NFC East team making it. And then a whopping 3 NFC North teams making it, because the Vikings are making it, the Lions are making it, and I think by all accounts,
the Packers are going to make it. I don't think they're in any trouble unless they drop a few
because there's
short.
a possibility in the AFC of 3 AFC West teams making it.
Yeah,
right. Broncos, the Chargers, and the Chiefs. And
it's interesting. The AFC West is strong this year.
Hold. Only 1 AFC South team making it and 1 NFC South team making it. Yeah. I'm telling you, this goes back to why couldn't Miami just move to the freaking South? Stay in the East with the goddamn Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. Who cares?
Miami would have a chance.
My goodness. You know how many more banners we'd have? Jeez Louise, bro. I'm not saying Super Bowl banners, but at least division banners.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is probably my most I'm excited about this week of football. This is the first week where I've cleared my schedule so that I can just watch football this week. To me, this is where stuff gets really interesting.
For sure.
Who's going to go where and who's going to go, what's going to happen and blah blah blah.
Because there's gonna be upsets, and some of these games that are tight, they're kind of like pick'em games. When the result comes in, it's okay, now how's that going to change everything, right? So, the playoffs for some of these teams is starting now, essentially, because they got to, a lot of these teams need to win out. They got to win these games in order to even make the playoffs. So, that's when it kind of, December football, man, it gets real interesting, and, it leads right into, this stretch run for all these teams that need to win to make the playoffs, and then moving forward, obviously, to win a championship. So, we'll kind of be watching and see. And then, from a fantasy perspective, right? Everybody's starting their fantasy playoffs. So, it's a good thing that these teams are in competition, because that's going to lead to, better game flow, better game script for these players. And you're not going to get any surprises, hopefully, moving forward, because it seems like most of these teams are going to be in it either for the number 1 seed or for playoff positioning, so that's always good if teams don't clinch too early, right? So you get the full 17 weeks of fantasy football where you don't have to worry about playing a bunch of backups. You're like, what the hell? I got to pick up some random guy to play in my fantasy championship because half the teams are playing. So that would be annoying. So
what's really annoying? Speaking of fantasy, before we end the show,
Yeah.
I actively didn't play fantasy this year. I started a league last year, got like 5th place. I'm like, you know what? I'm done with fantasy. I'm not doing this anymore. No one signed up to do fantasy from that league that this year. I just forgot to close the league. So Yahoo like just did its auto draft, and every week games have been happening. Apparently, I'm like in 2nd place in the league.
Wait, you have a fantasy team you didn't know about?
I have
good.
Yeah, the one time I'm like not even paying attention to the league at all. I'm not actively trying to do anything.
Dude, you should start setting your lineup now and trying to win this
Funny.
ghost league.
Let's go.
That'd be
Just trying to get
hilarious.
place. It's freaking hilarious. If you enjoyed our banter, friendly reminder to like and subscribe to the PTW podcast. We make 2 episodes a week. We're talking about all things NFL football. We will be covering the rest of the weeks and the playoffs and the Super Bowl. Until next time, my friends, my name is Amir. This is Posse the Football Greek. And we will see you all next time.